Is it on there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay then, cool. All right then. All right, just hold up 1 minute. We'll just go ahead and start. Believe me, we're not going nowhere. You know, I'm the kind. I believe in, we don't have as many opportunities to come together, so I'm the kind of person, I don't come together basically and come do about an hour and a half and then try to get out of town or something like that. I go to the people say they can't take no more. If anybody heard me before, heard any of the tapes, they're extremely long and stuff like that. No, we're doing the short version of 6 hours, 5 hours. Usually I go 8. I did 10 hours in L.A. But now people saying, how can you do that? How can you do that? How can I sit through that? There's a mystery between that. And that's why we say that we have to. The hours seem like minutes, so that if I do 6 hours, it's going to seem like 2.5. Now, how can you do that? How can somebody do that? How can I do 8 hours on a tape and do 8 hours? Do 8 hours. How can you do 8 hours? That's a whole work day. But what it is, it's a spirit realm because we invoke the energies in the spirit, and once you invoke that and you get on that particular realm, then it's nothing. But what happens here is you go into another alternative states of existence. So that's the difference. That's the difference when they say there's no such thing as time and space. Here, let me plug it up. You gonna cut that light off?
No. It just needs. When she starts taping, you're going to be in the dark. This is a dark corner.
Okay.
So she's going to use
Well, I'm taping now, so believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. All right, so got some of those books, and you can drop them back in there if you want to. I was just seeing what I had. Let me clean up a little bit. So, like I said, that's another thing based on the spirit realm. You ever heard the thing, time flies when you're having fun? Well, what we're going to do is, this is very special because, this is very special because it was interesting when they did the history of jazz. Anybody saw that documentary last year, 2001? Yeah. When they did the history of jazz, it was interesting that they couldn't leave Kansas City out. You see, because they knew that was a main focal point when they talked about don't worry about it if you want. I can give you the books or whatever you want. But anyway, when they talked about Count Basie, which is interesting here because even in the metaphysical world, a guy out of England named Kenneth Grant talks about actually Count Basie and some of his rhythms being forms of spiritual voodoo out of Haiti and spiritual aspects of stuff you can trace back to ancient Kemet, where they talk about jump jazz and they talk about a goddess named Hecate or Hecate, and which has got a frog head in Egypt, and it was talking about it jumps up and down, and it was talking about leaping into different dimensions. And in so many words, it was interesting because that's where basically Count Basie got his start from. You see what I'm saying? So it's not by accident that things happen, whereas sooner or later, some things have to make it through Kansas. It's not by accident that the whole Wizard of Oz thing was set from Kansas. If you get H.P. Lovecraft, who had a series of dreams in the 1920s, wrote some stuff called Cthulhu mythology, or what they call the At the Mountains of Madness, or he had a couple of books out called The Call of Cthulhu, and in so many words, he started having these dreams. And when he had these dreams, as a result, he started writing these stories for Weird Tales. And from those particular stories about pre-races that existed before man existed, which we're going to tap into today and try to give you some more mysteries about these things, is when he wrote these things, as a result, some of the writers around that time, the whole Wizard of Oz thing came out. You see what I'm saying? And the whole Kansas thing and the whole all that stuff, you're going to find out that basically nothing is nothing is by accident. Nothing is by accident. Now what I need to do here is I think she has some here. Nothing is by accident. I want to put in some of these, so if some of you want to get audios, you can also have some of these. You can request the audios, you know. And so nothing is by accident. Let's see here. Let me get this right. Play record, okay. Everything is everything. And that's what we really literally have to teach our people, whereas they had those particular surveys where we don't get into science fiction, we don't get into this, you see what I'm saying? And, you know, and different things like that is because that is by design that we are shut down on several aspects of the spiritual realm in the aspect of we get into these things as we're a child, but when we go into puberty, someone in our social rearing tells us that we are not supposed to deal with anything outside of what is the social order or the conventional order of what we think everything is supposed to be. So we're supposed to put away things that we call childish things, but it's called that those the same things they call childish things also spur the imagination. So they got stuff called, they did a whole conference on studying melanin. These are white people. Did a conference in 1996 on melanin and studying the Kundalini energy inside of us. And as a result, they call what they call melanin and what is produced from melanin, they call it creative physics. Creative physics. That's nothing but just plain melanin mysteries. That's what this stuff is. What they call creative physics. So they did a whole conference on this thing back in 1986, excuse me. And this is the same stuff they talk about, creative mythology. So in so many words is so what we're going to be dealing with tonight and all this type of thing. And feel free, because this is going to be like an open thing, because what we're trying to get into now here is we're trying to get some interaction, because people have interaction, because people have certain things on their mind, but by the time the lecture's over, they've either forgot it. And so feel free to raise your hand, and, you know, raise your hand. I'll just tell you when I'm on a roll that just hold up. But most of the time, feel free to raise your hand, because it's more like a town meeting. What we're dealing with here now at this particular time is a black think tank. And we say that is because what we have also here is because, like I said, meetings are few and far in between when you meet conscious people, or people that's got something on their mind. And what we say by that here is, you might have somebody that you meet that's conscious, you have a conscious conversation. It might be 2-3 months before you meet another person. That's how dead it has come in the last, let's say, 6 years, because what had happened was that they did have a resurgence of knowledge and information in the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s. It was even reflected in the rap music and even in the dress and everything else. But what happened is the churches, government got into this thing, and what the government did is the government had to destroy what they had to do. Olivia, now, do you want to do the donation now? What you want to do?
Yeah, I'll come in just a second.
Yeah. How do you want to do?
Bob, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any written information from this conference?
It's a book called The Sign and the Serpent by Mark Balfour, Balfor. Mark Balfour. There's a book called The Sign and the Serpent by Mark Balfour. This book comes from a book company out of Australia, put it out a couple of years ago. But it's called The Sign and the Serpent.
What's the author again?
Mark Balfour. That was interesting because I did a whole lot of series of information on sex tantra, magical sex. And I went around the country and black people lost their mind. They just couldn't take it. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the ingrained fundamentalism that we have gotten, you know, in our lives. So therefore, when it came to things as basic as sex, we couldn't take it. And I did 2 years on this thing in the book, Mind Control in America. Can't think of the name of that guy who wrote that book, but they got a copy of it down here at the library in Kansas, the one here. It's an out-of-print book, but they got a copy when I was here this past summer. Mind Control in America. I can't think of the guy's name. In that book, and it talks about how the subconscious mind accepts what you give it. And it accepts what you give it as truth. Then it starts to act upon what you programmed it with. And so your whole life becomes a series of things that you have accepted with the subconscious mind, what you told the subconscious mind through certain education that you got from certain people that fasten your education, certain religious practices, certain this, certain that at an early age you program your subconscious mind. Now, the key here is, if there's wrong information programmed into the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind accepts the wrong information as truth and acts upon falsehood just like it is truth. And then when truth comes, which is the opposite of the falsehood, it rejects the truth. And this is things that we have right now, even in the core fundamental aspect of religion. You see what I'm saying? To give you an example, and the brother Asa Hilliard raised this question, and it was so profound, but sometimes you have to just raise the question just to get a person to think. And he raised this question. He said, how many people believe in one God? And everybody raised their hand. I believe in one God. I believe in one God. Everybody raised their hand. Okay. Because everybody knows that basically we come by the way of Judeo-Christian paradigm. Judeo-Christian Islam. The paradigm. I believe in one God. Okay, he's asked the question, now what about if nobody ever told you that? Now what about if there was no doctrine or some theology that told you that? Would multiple deities be bad? And everybody went, first they stopped and they went, wait a minute, if you talk about it, you had to deprogram it. What about if nobody ever told you that that was bad? Would multiple deities, what would be wrong with multiple deities? You see what I'm saying? And everybody had to be honest and say, nothing. Nothing would be wrong with that. You see? It's only based on your programming. Now, although in ancient Kemet and in ancient Africa, they have multiple deity systems. And when you put those deities together, it represents a puzzle, and the puzzle represents the one God and the God one. You see what I'm saying? And Wallace Buzz, before he died in 1935, in his book From Fetish to God in Ancient Egypt, he said, when I wrote Gods of the Egyptians in 15 years prior to 1935, I was thinking it was a multiple deity system, which it was. But he said, I'm finding out now, when you put all those together, it represents the one God and the God one. You see what I'm saying? It just depends on your interpretation of somebody else's stuff. Well, it's the same thing with Islam. They say Allah has 99 attributes. So what they have done is they've taken the multiple deity system and they just say, oh, those are the different attributes of the God. Well, in Christianity, they will give you the one God, but then they have archangels. You see, so the Nettas in ancient Egypt becomes the archangels in Christianity. You see what I'm saying? The ancient Nettas in ancient Egypt are the multiple deities, and other ancient systems become the 99 attributes in Islam. You see what I'm saying? And it depends on who's telling the history. Like, give you an example. To give you an example on what's going on. When they first went back into Africa, Egypt, the arrogant white boy said, we think that the Egyptians didn't know their religion. Maybe it's something the Africans didn't know their religion. Now wait a minute. You're looking at a person's spiritual system because you don't understand. Look at the arrogance. Yeah. You believe that they didn't know their stuff. And this was in the 1800s, the arrogant British mentality. Now the guy Faulkner, which is an Egyptologist from the 1940s, said, but by the 1950s said, well, you know, we've been looking at this wrong. He said, because we do see all kinds of contradictions in the Egyptian mythology, in the Egyptian architecture. We see all these contradictions. And he said, you know, I'm realizing now that these people purposely built the contradictions in on purpose. Why is that? Because that's the way it is in nature. No leaf is the same. If you have a leaf that's identical, then that comes man-made. That's manufactured. You see what I'm saying? Nature is the laws of contradiction. Rocks, the nature, the animal kingdom, everything's laws of contradiction. Because that is, the word love means a union of two opposites. There's a book here called, it's an excellent book. This book called The Science of Love by Dr. John Baines. It's a dynamite book. Dr. John Baines. Especially, now this is one, because anybody ever fell in love and you got a whole lot of emotions and shit, you don't know what's going on and stuff. There's a whole lot of scientific, astronomical, astrological, physiological, metaphysical, hormonal things that's going on. Hormones, chakras, all this stuff that's going on and stuff is going on. And it's a whole science to that. Well, the Egyptians mapped that out. And here's a book called The Science of Love by Dr. John Baines, who studied ancient Hermeticism, which is an Egyptian art of the god Tahuti, or Thoth. That you later on get Tahuti, you get Tahuti, you get Thoth, you get Hermes in Greece, Mercury, you get Elijah in Hebrew, you get John the Baptist by the time this thing comes down in Christianity. You see what I'm saying? All these in a week means the doorkeeper, even Anubis, Hermanubis is a form of the gatekeeper. And it means one who comes before Christ. You see what I'm saying? Which is the one who brings the knowledge. That is a metaphysical aspect, because they say that knowledge becomes before Christ. The one who brings the knowledge. Go get the movie, the last movie that just came out, Time Machine. You had a time machine that came out this April. Past April or past March of 2002. And in that movie, they had a black man encased in glass, and he knew he knew all the knowledge on the planet. Number one, why was he black, and why did he know all the knowledge on the planet? Because he was acting as the god Tahuti, the god of wisdom, the god Tahuti, the god Hermes, the god of Thoth. With the word Thoth, you get the word thought. The word thought comes from the word Thoth. Hermes, Icarus in Islam, Enoch is a form of Tahuti. Enoch is a form of Tahuti. Like I said, Elijah, god of wisdom, is a form of Tahuti. Merlin in the Moorish mythology, that's where the Merlin and the Grail, Knights of Grail, and Knights of the Round Table and all that come from in the Moorish mythology. And all. These are all, and then John, very key, where you get the word John Muhammad. We're going to get up into that in a few minutes and let you know what's going on with that. You see what I'm saying? I'm going ahead of myself. We're going to break the ice a little bit because I still got 4 libations. We want to get into this thing here, what went down with that. So that you won't be as baffled on some things that's going on, because that was straight up a government system. And all. And you don't need to rally behind John Muhammad, because John Muhammad was working for the government. That was a hitman for them. Now we know the history on this whole thing. We know the history on this thing here because, do you know, well, first of all, the guy, because remember now, the guy said, now it's interesting because 2 weeks he was killing people. They thought he was an expert. You understand what I'm saying? And the day that they announced they found him, all of a sudden he Gilligan. Yeah, right. This is stupid as hell, leaving all kind of stuff behind. You see what I'm saying? And there's a reason because of that and all, you see what I'm saying? Because it was already designed from the get-go. They made a movie on it 2 or 3 weeks after 9/11 called Liberty Stands Still with Wesley Snipes. It's a movie about Wesley Snipes moving to Washington, D.C. with the same sniper gun. The same sniper gun that John Muhammad had, Wesley Snipes has in the movie. And so he moves to Washington, D.C. He has this particular gun. They show the gun, they show the bullets, they show all of that. And he moves to Washington, D.C. and he starts killing people. And they even had a black man who was his accomplice in the movie. They show him for a small bit. You see what I'm saying? So this is very key. This ain't nothing but Manchurian Candidate. Get the movie again. This is nothing but a government officer. Do you know that this guy, now it's interesting because when he was in, the guy from Tacoma, Washington, told him, said, there was a guy that he was a part of a homeless shelter in Tacoma, Washington. And the next thing they knew is the guy that was a part of the homeless shelter said he called the cops on John Muhammad. They said, well, why would you call the FBI? He said, well, I thought it was awfully funny that a person's in my homeless shelter that can get on a plane and fly to the East Coast anytime he wanted to. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you see, so, now, the key here is based on that, you know, Khalid Muhammad got shot, and you probably know about Khalid Muhammad. Khalid Muhammad got shot in 1994 at some college out in California. Do you know that the same guy who shot Khalid Muhammad is the guy who trained John Muhammad? You see what I'm saying? Who trained John Muhammad? The same guy that shot Khalid is the same guy who trained John Muhammad. So we know this guy is a government agent. You see what I'm saying? We trying to look at this particular Jamaica connection with this thing. Did everybody get one of these papers with the tapes on them? Yeah. With the tapes on them? Which one now? Yeah, okay, well, yeah, just, you could want to pass a basket around or something, however you want to do it. And while they take them donations, I could be talking, it's all cool.
Bobby, his wife came out kind of suddenly.
Well, my point is it's even worse than that. He gets caught on TV. He gets caught on TV. You know, they announced him that day. That same night, his family members is on Larry King Live. Now, wait a minute, hold on now. You chilling. You just hear some news that somebody in your family is the damn sniper. You should be distraught or should be discombobulated or whatever. Look here, you laying in your bed. You get word, hey, your husband was the sniper. Okay? And you mean to tell me you're not affected enough that you're going to get on a plane and fly to doggone Larry King Live and be on TV the same night that you heard this man was a sniper? His family members was dressed up, hair done. Shit, that's a feed right there. You got to get your head. You go on TV, all of a sudden your stuff is cut, hair done. Not only that, nobody distraught, and they all talking shit about the man. Wait a minute, okay, I can see if it's something where you made up your mind that you gonna say, well, you know, I gotta come out and save my family name. You know, most people save my family name or whatever. I just want everybody to know that we ain't all like that. But my God, the man just got caught this morning. A day before, we didn't know who he was. And the night, all the family members on Larry King Live. Yeah. Now, this is interesting because I told you the word John is the Hebrew Tahuti, but also John is the Hebrew Elijah. The word John Muhammad is the same as the word Elijah Muhammad. You see what I'm saying? Now, you got to understand what we're talking about MK Ultra. MK Ultra is, get the movie Manchurian Candidate, he's the government operative. He could be sitting in his house chilling, watching BET Comic View, and can get a phone call with some numbers in it, and the next thing you know, he on a plane going to kill somebody. Because they did that movie was 1963. Now, the mystery with all of this is, what is going on is this here, is to still try to dehumanize black people. There's a reason for that, is to try to it's like we already have been pushed down to the ground. I mean, we are at our lowest point as far as us as a people in any type of unity sense or whatever. Black people are ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? We are at one of the worst points in history. And the only reason why you sitting up in here now is because of the simple fact, about 10 years ago to 12, 15 years ago, the spirit world spared a group of people because you had to get this particular information. And so what they did was, they put a whole group of people out. It was like the movie The Big Red One. Everybody saw this movie where they sent a whole bunch of people out there to get killed and get all in the turmoil for a few people to have some good common sense and to get this particular information. And that's what's happening. That's why most of you can't talk to your family members about this. They don't want to hear. You know what I'm saying? And you might have one or two people, but basically you're all alone. Why is that? And basically you're all alone. That is because it's like the rapture that they talk about in the Bible, where they take a certain people up. It's a metaphysical thing. They take a certain people up, they get a certain amount of information, and other people are left behind. You see what I'm saying? Other people are left behind. But that's the way the consciousness is now. That's, and so there was a resurgence of people and a resurgence of information that we got. But this is information that they got to have a few people out here. That's the priesthood. Now, we asked this particular question. How many of you all your life thought you were special? You didn't have to tell nobody, but how many people, raise your hand right now. How many people that thought that there's something special, something special? Something strange, right. Now, it's amazing because when I travel all over the country and everybody I speak to, they say the same thing.
Something wrong with you, girl.
Yeah, they say something, you feel like an outcast or whatever the deal here is.
Outcast.
Right. There's a reason for that, and that is because they spared a certain amount of people so you can gain this particular information. Now, because you have the information, you don't really have to worry about them. Because you got to understand, you don't have to worry about it because I know how it is. You get something that you hear all this great information. The first thing you want to do is tell it to the people you love. Especially the people you love, you want to share in this joy. But they're looking at you, beating you over the head. So they say that that's called a suffering Messiah. Which means in actuality, for whom much is given, much is required. You suffer for the information that you get. You see, now, I know that the Christian world want to say you suffer because you're a Christian and everybody else. That's bullshit because everybody's Christian. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't, for some osmosis, I want to know how is it that most people, when they get turned on to the Bible or whatever, and they come out, you would think that they're coming to some people who never heard this before. Who never heard this before. You see what I'm saying? And who never heard this before, which is crazy because we're bred Christians. You see what I'm saying? Or whatever. That's the social fabric of who we are. But see, that's that whole same concept here. But one of the concepts here is that they say that they suffer because of what they know. No, we all know that. There's a church on every corner. They ain't trying to doggone keep you away from knowing that. There's a church on every doggone corner. And if you turn on that cable station, it is downright ridiculous. You figure now, if this is supposed to be something that has respect for all people, it seems to me that there could be something on the cable station. If you got 10 Christian stations, where are your Muslim stations? Where's your Buddhist stations? You see what I'm saying? Where's your African traditional religious stations? You understand what I'm saying? And if you have one side, like it's one-sided, because that brings on religious intolerance. And if there's one side, it seems to me the government would say, well, we have to balance this out by giving the people a consortium of religions around the world. You see what I'm saying? Around the world. But there's a concept of that. We're going to get into all of that tonight. The first thing I need to do is I need to pour some libations to get the energy, flowing. Yeah, she got some back there. Give me some water and give you a glass of that juice too. Yeah, I got this. Let's see here. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so we're going to pour some libations. Now this is very key because we're going to also give you a couple of things that you need to do. Because I know this state here is this area is hostile towards black people. And so by it being hostile towards black people, there's certain things you need to do, especially when you're in your automobile. But that's going to be the key. Because the new playground for the police is not trying to hunt down the crap. They put that in. It was a job well done for them. They got all the black men in prison. You see what I'm saying? And basically what it is they understand the science. There's a certain amount of group of people you can lock up. Then there's a group of people that's a little more sophisticated than going to jail. And you can't lock them up like that. So how the new battleground for them and your new battlefield is going to be in your automobile. And it starts right now with the tickets they're going to give you. It don't have to be no shit where you're going to go. It's just going to be, you're going to be, like I said, one left turn going to cost you $700. See what I'm saying? And so that's how they're going to do things. Or they're going to do things based on when you get your tag, it's going to be so much money. When you get this here, how old your car, so that's how, so you got to understand where the battleground is. What's that?
Oh, I had a girlfriend tell me she wound up spending, I think, something like 40 or 50 days in jail because her grandson was cut. And she said when she was down there in court, they also had an elderly woman down there. She said she was in her 60s and she was kind of crippled. They made her do time because she could not paint her 3 stories.
You know, this is what's going on here. They made protests be something passe, whereas a person in protest now is looked on as clandestine, looked on as those people that still, you know, they put it in with the whole liberalism thing. And the only thing they got to do here is to make get white people out of social protest. Black people gonna follow, because nobody gives a damn about them, no, they always complaining. So when they can break a certain amount of things, basically what they can do is they can put you on lockdown based on your laws. Now this is the other thing too, and this is what you must understand. There is no more Constitution. That was suspended during 9/11. And when they wrote in Homeland Security on the 25th or 26th or 27th or whatever, that's it. Now what I'm trying to say here is all you got to do here is go out to your airports. When you go to the airports, you ain't got no legal recourse whatsoever. If you don't do what they do, you can get your ass locked down. Now, what you don't realize, they say it's an airport. That means they have sealed off the places that come in and out of the states. So the point I'm trying to make here is, it might not seem that it's Homeland Security on the inside, but it's Homeland, but they've already sealed it all off. And do you know, when they passed the Homeland Security bill, they gave Bush the right to, he can come here to Kansas, and he can call from Washington, D.C. to Kansas Police Department, Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri, and he can tell a police officer or whatever and dictate the law on what they can do, and they can't do a damn thing about it. And stuff, because they gave him all anonymity, all rights, all power. That's a dictatorship. And they did it under this whole thing based on terrorism. So one of the keys here is also, too, with the tickets and different things like that, the new battleground now is going to be inside your automobile. So there's a couple of things you need to do. There's a couple of things you need to do. Number one, has anybody ever seen the Egyptian god Anubis, the black dog? Yeah. Anybody familiar with that? Now, when I was telling you about Mark Balfour, to my creative physics, everything is based on melanin magic now. If you can use your melanin, that's the battlefield. It's still about melanin wars. We're going to get into all of this. Now, whenever you imagine thing, it's called creative imagination. That is real. Don't you know they say if you can't conjure something up in your mind, it don't even exist? If it's something that doesn't exist in the universe, you can't even think of it. That means if you can perceive it, it already exists. Everything you got, a building downtown, was in somebody's imagination at first. They just brought it into the physical realm. And there's a magic in doing that called construction or whatever. But you can bypass that and build stuff even on a whole high level, which we used to do. But the point I'm trying to make here is the black dog Anpu or Anubis, that particular dog, if you imagine him and put him on top of your car, I guarantee you this. Now there's one way he's laying on his stomach. You ever see this? Anybody see this? Yeah. Because you need to get a picture of this and you need to imagine it mentally. When you get in your car, you need to imagine him sitting on top of your car. And the police will not stop you. That's a good, yeah. Let me hold that. Let me pass that up and put it on the camera. This is a candle holder, an incense holder. It's a candle holder and an incense holder. And it has the black dog Anubis. I want to put this on the camera and stuff. And it's the black dog Anubis sitting on his prostrate, sitting on his stomach. This is what you need to imagine on top of your car. You imagine that on top of the car and several Nubas and Pooh to guide you. The cops will pass by you and you doing 95. But you got to understand your science now because it's going down to that. Because the dimensions are now closing in. You say, well, how do you know that? Well, goddamn it, look, go to Sunday, go to Monday. You go to Monday, then it's Wednesday, then it's Friday. Am I bullshitting? Monday, then it's Wednesday, then it's Friday. The weeks have gone down to like 3 days. If anybody know what I'm talking about here. Yeah. It's Monday, then it's Friday. Yeah. And the month will come, you're going, oh my God, man, we already in the middle of February. That's because time has sped up. You see? That's because time has sped up. You see what I'm saying? So my point here is, there's all types of things that's happening spiritually. So in your mind, what you have to do here is you have to put that Anubis on your car. Another thing you need to do is you never want to get in a wreck. What you do is you go get you some red meat out of the grocery store, some red steak, and you rub that red steak on your tires, and you won't get in a wreck. Rub it down. Just take that stuff and rub it on your tires. These are things that's come up from Africa. This comes from the Yoruba, out of West Africa, the Yoruba religion. This comes about the red thing. You rub that red meat on your tires and you won't get in a wreck. If you know. Another thing, if you're going somewhere and you want to be safe, all you got to do here is wear purple if you're winning. Or imagine purple. But there's another one too. That same dog, you can put him on a leash and imagine him walking with you. And you won't get raped or nothing. Or nothing will come harm to you. Or just the brothers too, if you want to be invoked, you don't want no shit to go down, you don't feel like fighting. Then you put Anubis on a leash. And these are spiritual things that you can do, you see, because we're living in two universes simultaneously, concurrently. And you have to access that particular energy. You have to access that type of stuff now. Now, is anybody right now that ain't dealing with some type of their own science, what we call magic, is in trouble. Now, if you're dealing with your own stuff and you know who you are, you don't have to worry about that because the simple doggone fact, they're not bothering the people who know who they are and are dealing with their particular magic. They can't touch you. They can't touch you at all. They got a certain people on a certain level, they can't touch you at all. But now it's gone down to whether it's simple, whether you're dead or you're living. And it's simple like the Egyptians say, every day you live, you're supposed to learn something. And the day that you didn't learn something was the day that you didn't live. So now we're talking about here is based on your particular consciousness. Or your particular consciousness is basically you're going to have to start using that particular magic. And they can't mess. As a matter of fact, they won't want to mess with you because I'm going to tell you something also too. They know when their time is up. They need a certain amount of people that's the real deal, original people, to tell them what kind of time they got left. And so therefore, they're not going to mess with you because they need you for code breaker. They got enough ignorant black people out here to pounce on, which is 99.9% of all black people, to pounce on, to not even mess with you because that's the realm they understand that they don't crave with the living when it comes to the living and the dead. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, you're immune from all the other stuff and all. Also, there's other things you can also do for your family members that's ignorant and stupid. Don't tell them about it. Don't tell them about certain things you're going to do for them. There's certain things you can do for them. And we'll go into all this in question and answer. We'll go into some things, certain magical things you can do for them and stuff that you can do that can help them also.